Good evening, everyone. My name is Simon Misiewicz from Optimise Accountants, and tonight's coronavirus financial update is more of a summary and recap session which brings together all of the updates that we have talking about in the past few days, maybe just under a week now. And it will cover all the ones that I think will affect business owners and for UK landlords. So that's where my primary focus is going to be on these next few slides. For anyone that is interested, we did have an online property tax workshop last Saturday, which quite a few people turned up for, but that is still live on YouTube. So if you do want to have a look at that video, please do so, and that will be on there for you. But obviously I'm here to help you with your growth and pay less tax, which kind of think about growth now looks and feels a little strange to say because of coronavirus. But let's go through some of the summary of the things that I've been looking at personally, which is a lot of the government support has been quite incredible, to be quite honest with you. So here's a kind of summary recap of what we've been talking about on an individual basis, but I'm bringing it all together now for you. So the first one was the 80% of wages paid by the government. So this is whereby you may have had a business, but because of coronavirus, it's had a major knock-on effect. You could be a shop, you could be a management consultancy service, you may even be a legal advisory panel whereby people come see you face to face. Well, those businesses cannot continue the way they had. So the government was very much aware that redundancies could come on board, where companies were saying, well, we need to make drastic cutbacks because the survival of the business is very important for the existing workforce. So the government did an incredible job here to say, well, rather than make that person redundant, and if they cannot work in your organization, then we will pay 80% of their salary. And that's an incredible feat. So hopefully it's going to stop this whole thing about will people have to be made redundant. No is the answer. 80% of the salary can be paid for those people that cannot work because there's no commercial reason for them to do so. Once the coronavirus social kind of separation, isolation has stopped, then people will return back to work and hopefully as normal. There is obviously a business interruption loan as well, which is 12 months interest free. One thing I'm hearing from the British Business Bank is the fact that it can be quite expensive once you go through that initial free period. So it's worth speaking to your bank manager to find out more about how they can help you. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about that, but it was worth just noting that the government are stepping in with loans to help people with this initial issue of lack of money coming through the door. Two eviction notices, one that I described about the last week and one that I'm describing to you for the first time. The first one is the no eviction law that came into pass for residential tenants. So if someone is unable to pay your bills for whatever reason, then it's not allowed to for the landlord to evict that tenant. So there needs to be a payment option. There is support for the tenant in question to get 30% of the market rent paid. There are obviously things like universal credits that can be used to pay the rent itself. So you may have a situation whereby someone is ill, they can get statutory sick pay. If they've been made redundant, albeit, we shouldn't see this happening, albeit one of my tenants was made redundant, I have to say, then they could get support in other means. So working tax credits, universal credits and various other things like that. So it is worth you speaking to your tenants to make sure that they are aware of all the things that they can claim, just so that one, you get paid in terms of your rental, but also you're providing some support to your tenants At the end of the day, they are customers of ours, and as landlords, we are responsible for sharing our knowledge to help them too. The other one that came in today, interestingly enough, was commercial buildings. So that is now going through the bill to say that if you are a tenant inside of a commercial building, you too are safeguarded. What that means is if you are unable to pay the rent on the premises that you are in, then you will not be allowed to be evicted either. Most times out of 10, I will suspect that the commercial building you're in, such as a shop, not so much warehousing as such right now, but you might have shops up and down the high street. You may have offices which you've decided to close, and you're thinking to yourself, well, as a tenant, well, what am I paying for? So this is a good way of stopping landlords from evicting those commercial tenants because they're not allowed to anymore, and there's a negotiation to be had. It does mean that the tenant does owe the landlord that money, but it does mean that there could be an arrears that needs to be paid back over a period of time. Again, a great move for me personally to see, because it does make sure that if you have a shop, you no longer have to pay wages to your staff members, and you don't have to pay any rent. The other bit for that for shop owners, which was again an incredible gesture by the government, is business rates £25,000 grant, which basically means that your business rates can be paid by this grant and it won't have to be paid back as such. So if you're in terms of retail, I think you are safeguarded. You won't get the profits clearly in terms of what you would ordinarily achieve, but at least your cost base is now not so worrying. So that's an improvement. If you are paying tax, then there is a telephone number that I urge you to call, which is 0800 0159 559. That number again is 0800 0159 559. I have no idea why I had to repeat that. You can see it on the screen, and you can always press pause and rewind. So the types of tax that you can benefit from in terms of this coronavirus financial support package is the non-VAT payment. So if you have VAT that was due from the period of 26th of March all the way through to the 30th of June, then you can cancel that direct debit. You would need to pay that over a period of time, but now it's going to be a negotiation between you, the VAT payer, and HMRC. So we was fortuitous to be able to cancel that direct debit, to reach out to HMRC and negotiate with them when we will be paying that back. By the way, as I'm talking about this, by the way, it's more about making sure you're beefing up your balance sheet as opposed to saying you cannot pay it. So even though I'm saying we could pay something, we do need to think about, well, how long will coronavirus last for and how much of an impact that could have on this business. So I do urge you, even if you do have the money, to make sure you defer any tax liabilities you can, just so that you can beef up your balance sheets and your bank accounts. If you're an individual and you have an income tax liability, typically you would pay your first payment on account for tax on the 31st of January and then another payment on accounts on the 31st of July, which would be 2020 obviously. That has now been deferred until the 31st of January 2021, which is the time that you would ordinarily be submitting your self-assessment tax return anyway. So again, if you are on direct debit for your payments on accounts, make sure that you cancel those. And again, please do reach out to HMRC just to confirm that everything is in order and so there's no issues for you to do that. If you've got any other tax liabilities such as corporation tax, CIS, then again you can use that telephone number to speak with HMRC and agree a payment term after the initial 3-month gap. The other things about mortgages and loans, I did talk about the business interruption loans versus commercial loans. I'll come on to that in a second. But if you've got a residential home mortgage or a buy-to-let mortgage, please do reach out to your lenders. Those banks in question will be able to provide you with holiday payment terms, whether that's for the capital or indeed the interest. So do reach out to them individually and find out what options they have. They do differ from bank to bank. So unfortunately, I cannot tell you this is carte blanche to their approach. But NatWest have been fantastic. I have said that throughout my sessions. They have reached out to me. They're very proactive into doing that. We've had discussions about having a loan arrangement being put in place to safeguard our business, to make sure we can pay our employees and have this overdraft facility in place. We've also got a loan that will then, any payments that we've made against our mortgages for buy-to-let properties, they are paying back those payments we've made in the previous 12 months. So again, it gives us a cash injection into our business. I did talk about business interruption loans versus commercial loans. So business interruption loan is from the government, British Bank, the British Business Bank, that's right. British Business Bank. I promise you I've not had anyone. In fact, I've been dry for the last 8 months, so 5 months in fact. So I promise you, I'm just stuttering just because I'm an idiot. So the business interruption loan is in place. You can apply from that from the 26th of March, I believe, and that is enabling you to beef up your balance sheet. But as I mentioned earlier, it can be expensive, even though you get this initial interest-free and capital payment period free, so you don't have to pay it back. The actual loan interest rates can be quite high. So I would suggest, again, if you're thinking about loans and mortgages, then speak to your banks first. And if they don't help you, which I can't imagine they would, the only bank that I don't see much help from is HSBC, but typically RBS, NatWest, Lloyds, all of those banks are being very, very helpful indeed. So do contact them. You could go to the British Business Bank, but as I say, the rates can be quite high. So even though there's support and help there for you, please do not rush into those directly.